been a bad, bad boy.
It looked like the beginning of the movie Doom.
Don't make me remember.
I mean, my hairs were raising on my arms right there just watching it.
It's interesting because like you see the evolution of horror movies and how freakishly scary they've become.
He's still here.
I'm guilty as charged. I usually don't watch.
At the very peak of the door.
You've been a bad, bad boy, Gabriel. Oh my God. He speaks.
He's broadcasting his thoughts.
I thought we could help him, but I was wrong. It's time we cut out the cancer.
So at this point, what is your thought?
My initial thought is that he's been a bad, bad boy. I mean, I'm in it for a horror movie, but right here I started to think, if he can talk over the radio, is this really going to be a realistic movie? So I was a bit concerned about that. Also, the fact that he looked like a zombie.
Yeah.
Little flailing arm-looking thing behind the screen. I don't know. At this point, I was a little drawn in by it, though.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. It was like, it looked like the beginning of the movie Doom or Resident Evil or something like that, like where there's like an alien or something, like some type of monster. And the way they started off, I was like, I was like, what? I don't have no clue what's happening right now. I have no clue what's happening. In fact, my wife and I restarted it twice because she wasn't into it. And I was like, let's give it a chance. That's how I felt about it.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely doesn't give you too much on the intro at all.
Yeah.
It definitely leaves you guessing and wanting more.
Definitely.
Whether that's good or bad.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange intro. It got better though.
Yes, not right away though. This next scene kind of still has that "what is going on" thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it all ties in well, but holy cow, they started off pretty brutal here.
Doing what? Madison, tell me what I'm doing, huh? Tell me what I'm doing. Are you saying this is my fault? Are you saying this keeps happening because...
Don't touch her!
Bitch! Shit. Oh, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna get you some ice, okay? Okay, I'm gonna get you some ice. Hold on.
So this is exactly where everything really starts for the movie, is this head injury. And I thought with this scene in particular, it was interesting. The dynamic between the two characters escalated super quickly. You had really no background on the two characters. You jumped into the scene. There's domestic violence right off the bat, and then everything starts to happen almost from there. What do you think about it?
Yeah, still for the first time watching it, I had no idea what was going on. It doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth right here when you're seeing this. Yeah. They even talk about issues with previous pregnancies. So I figured that this definitely had to be a turning point, but I couldn't see which direction it was turning yet. So I was still pretty bamboozled at this point.
Yeah, it definitely left you guessing.
It did, and a little salty at the man. So I figured right off the bat we're supposed to probably have negative emotions related to him.
Yeah. No. Okay, so here is the first death.
Where it starts to get good.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you're right. Okay, let's...
So this is the first death that we're about to watch. This is very shortly after her head injury. Things start to go south, and this is the first death.
Could not be the Simon Steel Blade. Has possession of the puck down. Kicks it out, cross pass out of...
Don't make me remember.
So at this point, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm watching it with my wife, and I'm like, why am I watching this? Like we're alone in our house right now. It's dark. Like, why am I doing this to myself? And that the question came across my mind. Like, we've watched so many horror movies. This movie is seen in a house, a dark house. There's some creepy figure now walking around the house, which is everyone's fear. Like, why am I watching this?
Definitely.
So why do you like watching horror movies?
I think it's definitely some aspect of that. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. A lot of movies, kind of like action movies, they usually play out. They have a pretty typical role. Hero saves the day. Hero gets the girl, end of the story. In horror movies, really anything can go. You can lose the main character at any time. There's always hopefully a good twist or a good plot at the end of it. And so it keeps you enthralled by scaring you, but also it keeps you guessing by what's going to happen typically.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's almost like the Tool song in one of their phrases. It says, "I like to see things die at a good safe distance."
Okay.
And it's funny because it's like all the horror movies that we watch, whether they're gory or just all outright scary with some type of demonic presence or whatever. All of it is stuff that like we would not want to happen in our life, but there's something about it that it draws us in. We're watching. You're like, there's something about it. It's like a guilty pleasure type of thing. And so it was interesting. We asked ourselves the question of like, why do we like horror movies? And we looked up this study, and one of the things that it talked about was, within the brain, there are specific responses to watching horror movies. And so, and it's part of people who like to watch horror movies. This study showed they actually are significantly higher in thrill seeking. And so there's something about watching a horror movie and the response that your brain has to it, where you're seeing this pain and this gore and these different, very uncomfortable circumstances, and it brings about some type of stimulation that we're looking for. It stimulates us in a certain way that actually leads to a pleasure response in the brain. So there's actually a reason why we watch these horror movies, which I found fascinating.
Absolutely. Do you think that plays true for yourself?
I would definitely say so. Because
Okay.
like when you're watching this movie, and I wouldn't say that this movie in particular is just outright frightening. It's honestly more of like a psychological thriller to me. I thought it was fascinating what they did with the movie. I thought it was great. But if you're like watching The Nun or something like that, you don't want to watch, but you also want to watch. And it's not that the level of stimulation is like some nights you're just looking for that. Some nights you really want to chill, and some nights you're looking for that stimulation.
Absolutely. When you're sitting there watching with the hands peaked and
Yeah. Honestly, guilty. I'm guilty as charged. I usually don't watch.
at the very peak of the gore,
right when the nun's about to pop out, or right when something's terrible. But even in this movie, like when this character was about to pop out and scare us, I look away. Just so if I go to bed that night, I don't actually see it when I go to sleep, like in the dark room.
Okay.
Do you watch?
I do.
Yeah?
I want that extra scare.
You're a voyeur.
Yeah. But you also said something interesting at the beginning when you first started to bring it up. Kind of, we want that gore in our life, but we don't want that gore in our life. There's a thing that they also said that it was psychological distancing. So I think that's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
You want it, but it can't be so real that we think that it is real.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that a really good horror movie plays off of very well.
Mm-hmm.
One example would be, you don't want to go to a farm and see animals get killed. That's real. That is disgusting. But here we can watch somebody get bludgeoned to death with a trophy, and we're like, oh, crazy, because some fictional part of it, like it's not a human killing a human, it's an imaginary friend killing a human.
Yeah.
And so that is another part of I can control the non-reality aspect of it.
Yeah. So have you ever noticed that horror movies that we watched when we were younger, some of your more classic horror movies, like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for example, these horror movies were not nearly as frightening when we were younger. They were not. It's like the original movies never were. And kind of playing off the study and talking about that thrill seeking, that seeking of stimulation that creates that reward response in our brain. it's interesting because like you see the evolution of horror movies and how freakishly scary they've become. They really have. It's like, and so if we had watched this level of a horror movie when we were younger, I don't know that we could have handled it. But now it's like the shock of this next level of horror is less stimulating to us because we're already desensitized to very stimulating, shocking things, which I find fascinating.
I would absolutely agree. It's basically a moving threshold, not only for individually, but also as like a society.
Yeah.
We can look back to the movie Jaws. That was one of the first ever movies that showed real violence within the scene. Most of the time they'd cut scene and then it'd be back to the after part. But in Jaws, they went all out. They showed you. People wouldn't go into the sewers for months after that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was traumatizing. And look at that movie now. You're just like, well, that was clearly fake. That was not good at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a classic. Don't get me wrong. Great movie. But the horror scenes are nothing like today.
No.
If people back in the day watched these movies, they would probably be shut in the rest of their life.
Yeah, yeah. And they may have gotten low box office records because like they may have not drawn any money because they probably would have been too over the top.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Another line that horror movies have to tiptoe very closely is what is too far and what is not good enough to scare.
Yeah. No.
No, it's not possible.
What did you think of this scene?
I mean, my hairs were raising on my arms right there just watching it. So it's a good scene, but this is also, I'm pretty sure, where I kind of understood the plot.
Okay.
It linked back to the doctor, and when she took that psychological trip, I can't move my body, this is going on.
Yeah.
I figured that it was going to be her.
Okay.
Unintentionally, without control. Kind of like we discussed that movie Split. Mm-hmm. It's like Hollywood's take on fantasizing split personalities. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of the direction we were going here, but I was still a little skeptical.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
I had no clue.
Okay.
I had no clue what was going to happen. Not at all. So my wife, we're at like 35 minutes in. My wife at this point was like, I can guarantee you when she hit her head, something happened, something reawoken in her. That was her exact words. And she pretty much called it. And I was sitting there like, honestly, I have no clue. I have no clue how this is going to end. I just thought it was super bizarre that there was some type of major environmental change where now it looks like the main actress is viewing this killing scene from the killer's eyes. I'm like, okay, this is super interesting. How are they interconnected? And I honestly thought at this point, like this is truly what I thought. I thought that the main actress, I thought she was the daughter of the nurse. And to really get back at the family, she's going to make some of the family watch as she killed other family members. That's what I thought was going to happen.
That could have been a very cool plot.
It could have been, but it was totally off base.
Absolutely. Hey, I mean, that means that they did good then.
Oh, it was awesome. That's why I'm saying I think it was so much. It was even more of a psychological thriller than a horror movie because it kept me guessing the entire time. I thought it was awesome.
Right. A couple murder scenes later, when the police walks in and they are still there, the killer, that is when I really started to doubt myself.
Yeah.
Because he flies out the window, grabs onto the balcony, and starts to basically jump stairwell to stairwell. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, that is not that woman.
Yeah.
She would not be able to do that. And so even later on, he's jumping through the buildings, he's going through the windows, and I'm just like, I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
I was started to doubt myself and second guess.
Yep.
So I mean, even they got me at that point as well. So well done on that.
Okay, so at this point, if you had any belief that the main actress was the killer, at this point, there's no way you think that anymore.
Yep.
No way.
I absolutely agreed. And like I said, this is the turning point where I was just like, well, that can't be her.
Yeah.
One, you saw the face.
Yep.
That was not a mask. That was just an ugly son of a gun. And two, he's propped up in the corner of the ceiling. Like they did, like no regular human can do that. Especially the next few scenes when they're going crazy and they're running through the street and dropping down off the thing. And completely blew my mind of this is not her. But the fact that she was still there did kind of get me to start questioning kind of like what you're talking about. Like, is there a psychological connection? Also, the fact that she is there telling the officer to run kind of made the like innocence of her grow in my mind.
Yeah.
She's really not trying to kill anyone if she's telling him to run away.
Yeah. See, to me, like at this point, I still thought that she was there as like an apparition, like somebody viewing it through this person's eyes. I didn't think she was actually physically there. So like once we saw the thing jump from the ceiling, I was like, okay, she was actually never there. She was still just watching it like a movie.
Yep. And that's exactly what I started to believe after this scene as well. So I was like, okay, I have no idea what to expect now.
It was crazy. And it just gets more intense from here. It's crazy.
Does. It really does.
I'm going to wake him up. Why don't you come around after I've injected him?
Oh my God! Oh my God, Manny!
What is that thing?
Were you not just like blown away at this point?
I was. It came back to me, well, there's the zombie thing that they had to cut out.
Yeah.
They cut out the cancer. And this is when it really hit me. The name of the movie is Malignant.
Yeah.
It's a malignant tumor.
Yeah.
So well done on the wordplay there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it just all comes crashing down on you like this is what's going on. It's an ugly little thing on the back.
Oh yeah. I'm sitting here thinking to myself afterwards, after I watched this and then looked up parasitic twins. I'm sitting here like with James Wan and the other two writers, like well done. Like that was to think of. Okay, so to put into perspective, parasitic twin births is like 1 in 1 million. They like almost no doctor has ever seen one. They're so rare, and so they took that and they're like, okay, let's make this parasitic twin into some type of an evil twin. I mean, like literally the definition of malignant or parasitic. It's crazy. That to me, that was so creative, so ingenious. I thought it was fantastic.
It really is. I don't know how they came up with the idea or what made them think of a parasitic twin, but wow.
No.
And it's really not that far off. I know that this was kind of coming out of her neck and spine. One of the latest ones was a girl from East Africa that got flown to Chicago.
Yeah.
She had an entire lower portion of a body growing out of her neck and back.
That was the lower spine, right? Where it's growing out of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that, so I mean, it's really not that far off. Just
Yeah.
switch the body parts around, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much what we have here.
Well, so the most creative thing, though, like to me, was not only just the origination of the idea for a parasitic twin to now be an evil killer. That was fantastic. But then for them to share not only an organ, which is even rarer than a parasitic twin, it almost never happens, but for that organ to be the brain, and they shared a consciousness. That was pretty crazy.
It really is. And like you said, it's a psychological thriller because a lot of it does have to do with the psychology.
Yeah.
I know we already talked about it earlier for a brief second, but like the Hollywoodization of split personalities
Yeah.
or like the dissociative disorders. Wow. You have a killer living in the back of your brain who can take over your body and not even know it.
Yeah. That was brilliant.
It really is.
So what about like vengeance as a motivator? Because in so many of these movies, vengeance is without question a motivator. That was obviously this guy's motivation was vengeance. He wanted to get vengeance on the nurse who tried to cut him out, but he was obviously born evil as well. We heard over the frequency waves that I'll kill you all at the very beginning. But it's almost like vengeance is most motivators, right?
Yeah, I would definitely
In
say
horror
so.
movies.
Okay. I'm going to bring up one to challenge that. What
All
about
right.
Saw? Actually, that might be vengeance as well, because he's jealous of... No, he's not jealous. He's hateful of those who don't appreciate what they have.
Yeah, who take things for granted.
That is the sense or a form of vengeance as well.
Yeah.
Huh. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Interesting take here.
Yeah.
James Wan also wrote Saw.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I
The
should've
original
looked that
one.
up. That's awesome.
Right? So he actually has a list of movies. He has The Conjuring 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
Insidious 1 and 2, and Dead Silence for his horror movies.
This guy is definitely a sensation seeker when it comes to horror movies.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He also made Aquaman and Furious 7.
Okay, well, that doesn't fit into this genre whatsoever.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too. But have you ever seen the movie Dead Silence?
Yes, that was one of my earlier favorite movies.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Holy cow, with the talking people,
Yeah.
old man, and the thing is actually dead as well while
Yeah.
she's feeding him soup.
That was fantastic.
It really was.
So it's funny, like with these horror movies, not all of them that we have mentioned, but so many of them take place in our houses.
This is very true.
Yeah. And so it's funny, it's almost like adding another element of, I don't know that I would say sensation to it, but like another element of something that would make us uncomfortable and have like a, I don't know, like you're closer to it type of feel, because we can all relate to something being in our house, and most of us have a fear of the dark and a fear of something being in our personal house or personal domicile to harm us. And it's interesting. I mean, most horror writers will play off of that, but it's just interesting. Like so many horror movies are centered around a house, especially when it comes to paranormal type of activity, whether it be demonic or whatever. But even with this movie, same thing.
It really is, and I do think that plays heavily into psychology.
Yeah.
So it ties into you, because what are the three basic things we need? We need food, shelter, and some sort of income.
Something like that.
So the shelter is now being stripped away from you because it's no longer a safe place.
Yeah.
You no longer have a protective area. And I think that's another thing that drives the fear of these when it's placed inside of a house, because it's so close to home and you're just like, that could be in my closet over there.
Yeah. No, I like that. Like it definitely hits close to home for sure. I like that.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
You can see both faces.
So I thought this was incredible. So at this point in time, like you see both faces as they're moving, but now you realize, at least it finally clicked for me, exactly the mechanisms of what was happening. So you saw the little teratoma come out of her skull that had been placed back in there. It's like this thing had obviously been like repressed back in her mind and now had been released when she got hit in the head. But now he's literally inverted all of her limbs to fight and run backwards. I was sitting there, I was like, I mean, obviously it's far-fetched. It was, and when you watch it, like, so my wife, when she and I were watching it, my wife was like, Derek, like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, but in the best of ways. But in the best of ways. I thought it was like creatively genius for a horror movie. I thought it was fantastic. But I thought it looked hilarious having her run backwards with her arms inverted and her legs inverted. I thought it was phenomenal.
I agree. I'm kind of siding with your wife on that one. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But in this exact scene, and everybody's shooting at her and can't hit her, and she's jumping over tables. I'm just like, what is going on here?
It's that teratoma, it's powerful.
It is, and that also brings up the point of how is it so powerful when the limbs are inverted?
Yeah,
but also using a smaller framed body and doing the things that it does.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
And it would almost be like when we saw in an earlier scene, and even in this scene, like she's jumping around, like the joints would be destroyed.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not very old, but I know for a fact when I twist my joint the wrong way, it doesn't feel good.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not the part of the science we discuss here. We are going to dissect that portion
That's
of
right.
it.
That's right. That's why it's a movie.
Absolutely.
My mind, my body, my everything. Now you get to live in a world that I create.
You can't lock me in here forever. You'll always be stuck with me. Sooner or later, I will get out.
I know. But next time, I'll be ready for you.
Boom. So, like, to me, what was so great about that, we are all so interested. There's been so many different movies, whether it was, what was the one, Legion, where it's Professor Xavier's backstory, or there's a new superhero one, I can't think about it. It was on Prime with Jason DeMol, or maybe it's Jake DeMol. Anyways, it's phenomenal. But everyone is so interested in, like, the idea that there's different compartments of the brain. You know, like that's depicted in a lot of different movies. And I think it's fantastic. It's like here, like we're seeing this main actress, and she has finally figured out, hey, you're part of me and my consciousness, and I can also control you and lock you in a compartment in the brain and keep you there. I think that's pretty fantastic. And I don't know what that plays off of. Maybe it's Freudian psychology of repressed memories. I don't know, but I think that part of us that wants to understand the brain and we think about it like different boxes. I think it's fascinating.
I would absolutely agree. She's literally locking him away in somewhere deep in her brain, and I really don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's so cool to kind of see the movies depict all these different sections of the brain and all of the powers.
Now, again, it's pretty far-fetched that she could control a teratoma who probably doesn't share a brain with her anyways, but it's fantastic nonetheless.
Absolutely. So how did you like the overall plot and the ending?
You know, it's funny. It's like the beginning started off for me, and my wife and I, we restarted it twice. No, we have a new baby, and that was really the reason why we restarted it twice, because he would not let us watch it. But we restarted it, and the second time I was watching it, I watched it from the beginning, and I was like, man, like, it doesn't feel like a horror movie when it starts off. It was just it felt like Resident Evil or Doom or some other movie, and then I really started watching it once she finally hits her head, and I'm like, okay, that was also kind of, it was abrupt. The dynamic, the character development between those two characters, it was abrupt, but it worked because immediately afterwards you see the first death, and you're like, what just happened? and from the beginning, it is a twist and turn. It really is like a psychological thriller twist and turn, because it took me literally until most of the way through to figure out what was happening. I thought that the ability to take something like a parasitic twin and make a movie off of that parasitic twin sharing a brain and controlling this person and making her kill people, or really he's killing people, I thought it was genius. I thought it was fantastic. There was parts of the movie were goofy, but that's part of like a creative genius, is that nothing has to be perfect. But the idea was phenomenal. I thought the execution was great. I'd watch it again. I thought it was awesome. What do you think?
I mean, I agree for the most part. The beginning it had me interested. I saw the little zombie T-Rex moving around, and then we go straight to her in an abusive relationship and straight to the killing almost within the first 15 minutes.
Which was extremely gruesome.
Right. Yes, it was.
All of them are.
Yeah, they really are. And then the plot kind of tracing it back to the old experiments, having her mother even involved in it. I thought the plot and the storyline was really good. It kind of had me seeing what the end was going to be like, but then it also had me second guessing. And then I definitely would never have guessed that it was a parasitic twin in the back of her brain.
Yeah.
Like
it comes out when it decides to.
Right. Exactly.
Her skull opens and closes when it wants to.
Exactly.
And somehow there was space in her cranium for that thing to fit in. which also was far-fetched, but I still thought it was fantastic. I thought it was, because I don't know, it was awesome. That was great.
I agree. Yeah. Another good thing about horror movies is that we don't want them to be way too realistic.
Yeah.
We need a little bit of that fictionalism, or else it's just a horror documentary.
Yeah.
But one thing I did not like was the ending. So she just killed an entire precinct of police officers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to leave it at that. She killed them, not necessarily her, but her body.
Mm-hmm.
And now she is okay because she locked the parasitic twin back up. Perfect. She's taken care of. She's got to get arrested, right?
I guess. I feel like with James Wan and the other two writers, I feel like obviously their intent, I would assume, would have been to have like a resolution with her, and more of like her psyche, her compartmentalizing, being able to take back control for good of that parasitic twin, as opposed to like the what happens afterwards with legalities of what just happened.
and I totally agree.
They definitely could have shown an arraignment and a trial by jury and all, but that would have sucked.
I totally agree. It's just one of those things, like, I really like a well-rounded out ending, and that was just like, I'm good. We're going to cut there.
Yeah.
And looking into his other work, a lot of his endings are like that.
Yeah.
They don't really end. They're just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
So, dead silence. The last thing they see is the doll killing the main character, and then the doll is still alive on the island, or in the area. Even in Saw, he just shuts the door on the person.
Yeah.
There's one that got away and one's still in there alive, and he's just like, well, the game's over, shuts the door and leaves.
I feel like that's part of like of genius writing, though, is like when you leave the audience guessing. Like like your job as a writer is not to give the audience to spoon feed them. You know, and if you can leave them at the end wanting more, and you can leave them guessing, and they had their own interpretation of what things are going to look like afterwards, that's genius. I think it's awesome.
Really riles me up.
Yeah. See, but it's got you reeled into it. Like, what happened?
It does.
What's going to happen?
Oh, it absolutely does. And then I do like make that assumption myself, and I'm like, I don't know if that's what they wanted, though. I don't know if that's the truth.
Yeah, yeah. So all in all, would you recommend this video?
I would.
Yeah.
I would recommend if you like gory things.
Gory things, yeah. The killings were definitely gory.
Yes. Other than that, it's really more of a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself? Would you?
I would. I definitely would. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was extremely. Well, I think one of the hardest things in writing or producing is to make original content, and it was original as hell.
Yes. Out of 10, what would you score it?
Ooh, it depends on what we're rating. Out of creativity, I would say a 10. Out of overall value in a horror genre, I would say an 8.
Okay. Overall horror genre, I was thinking like a 7.5.
Okay.
Creativity, I'll give it a 9.
Okay.
Because I feel like I've seen that idea somewhere. Like the parasitic twin is why it scored so high.
Yeah.
But like I blacked out and then I woke up and killed everybody. I just feel like right, exactly. I don't remember it. I must have got a little too tipsy last night.
Well, now to give him a little bit of credit, like most of creativity is on the margin. Like most ideas you take from somewhere else and you make it better with your own ideas. But yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well done.
Nice.